So let me ask you this question. Was there a call that you went to that you realized, hey, this is very important, and the gravity of this role really hit home?
You know, I mentioned the first call that I ever went to on my birthday, realizing the importance of someone being there in that moment, that I could do something and offer something that nobody else could in that moment. There was investigations being, looking for things and trying to find notes and all this stuff. And I could be there and just let the wife cry on my shoulder.
Right. Everybody? Is that loud enough? There we go. Okay. I wonder if I did that too much.
Now he's going to be confused.
Yeah, I know. That's going to be confusing. Well, okay. We're back again with Chief, Cap, and Chap. And today we have a new Cap because Captain John Broom is out on vacation and somewhere in Mississippi listening to blues music right now. So we brought Captain Zach Haskin in to fill in for John Broom. And today we are going to go and tell, you're going to tell your story that led you to be the chaplain of Sikeston DPS. And it's going to be fun, interesting. This is going to be our 4th episode, I think, if I remember correctly. So we're just moving right along. And appreciate all you viewers out there. And remember to subscribe to our channel. And if you got an email that you want to send us, we'd love to have some input. That is chief.cap.chap@gmail.com. Okay? So let's kick this thing off. Let's get into this. So, Jason, you are a chaplain. You have been a chaplain at Sikeston DPS for how many years now?
Since 2017.
Man, it seems like a long time. Tell us about your background, about what in your childhood. How did you come to be a pastor?
Yeah, so I was born and raised here in Sikeston. Mom and dad and a sister in the home. Had a great life growing up. Was raised in church, and my grandfather was my pastor for the first 18 years of my life. So grew up, went to school at Sikeston Public Schools, and much like John mentioned last week, had the dream of being a professional baseball player. So I was an athlete all throughout my child years, playing baseball, playing football, playing soccer, playing basketball, whatever I could play. And once I got into high school, playing for the school system and playing for the Bulldogs, was proud to be a Bulldog and worked hard to be the best that I could be at whatever sport I was playing. Baseball was my thing. And so once I graduated high school, was offered a scholarship to play baseball in St. Louis at Harris Stowe State College was the name of the school at that time. And went up there and played baseball for a little while. Very short time, played baseball up there. And that was because as I was playing baseball and living in inner city St. Louis, was feeling this tugging that there was a change in my life happening, that it was time to move on from this dream of playing baseball, and God was calling me to something different. And I didn't know what that meant. All I knew is I wasn't supposed to be playing baseball, and I needed to figure out what that meant. So I left St. Louis, gave up the scholarship to play baseball, moved back home, and, of course, realized quickly that I have to find a job now. So thankfully, I was real good friends with Chris Stewart out at Stewart Still, and he hired me to sweep the floors at Stewart Still as a 19-year-old. And it was there that while I was working that I began to try to understand what the Lord was calling me to, and that was ministry. So surrendered to ministry in the summer of 2001, and that kind of started my journey towards really where we're at today, going through Bible college, seminary, and fast forwarding to now pastoring a church. So,
Wow.
Yeah, it was kind of that. I mean, it was kind of this this ride. A lot of things happening when I was 19, 20, around 2000, 2001. That's when September 11th happened.
Right.
And I would remember I was going to SEMO at the time, and we were sitting in the Baptist Student Union basement watching the events unfold that afternoon. And the buildings had collapsed, and they were talking about casualties. And come to find out, one of the, I think the first recorded casualty was a man by the name of Michael Judge. Mm-hmm. He was a Catholic priest.
I remember that.
And he was the fire chaplain for the fire department in New York City. And I remember thinking that day, like, that's interesting to me. I think that's something that I would be interested in pursuing if it was ever possible. Didn't know that it would ever be possible. I didn't even know what it meant to be in ministry or to be a pastor or any of those things. So, but that's where the seed was planted for chaplain ministry for me. And then met my wife, Crystal. We got married, started having kids, those types of things. But in 2005, I was going to church with a guy that worked for Scott County Sheriff Department. And we're just having conversation. Went and did a ride-along with him. And he was like, do you know the sheriff? And I said, yeah, I know the sheriff. And he said, you should talk to him about being our chaplain. And my mind went back to September 11th, just like that. And I was like, this may be that opportunity. So had a conversation, filled out some paperwork. And the next thing I knew, I was one of the chaplains for Scott County Sheriff's Department.
Was that West Jury?
It was Rick Walters.
Rick Walter at the time.
In 2005, yep.
Okay. Oh, all right. I got you.
Yeah. So
you were doing this way back then.
Yeah.
I don't guess I realized you did it that long.
Yeah. I started doing the chaplain ministry then. My first ride along as a chaplain was in the fall of 2005. Went to my first major incident on my birthday, October 4th, 2005. Man took his own life, and that was the first thing that I went to and served as a chaplain, and it rocked my world.
Wow.
And I realized, it was just intense. I mean, I'm at that time 24 years old, and when I thought about what it meant to be a chaplain for the police department, I didn't know if that meant I was supposed to go into jails and just like hand out Bibles.
There's not a rule book for it?
Well, I mean, yes, there kind of is, but at that time it was just like, yeah, you can be one of our chaplains. And I thought that meant like, okay, well, you're going to pray for the officers and you can, come do ride-alongs and have fun. And, it was almost like a PR thing. I mean, quite honestly, that was a part of what they talked about. It'd be good PR.
But that day it got real.
And then I got that phone call in the middle of the day on my birthday. I was ready to have a birthday party that night, and instead I'm not having a birthday party. And I realized then I can do this, and this is what a part of what God has gifted me to do, giving me the ability to have conversations with people in their darkest of times, to comfort somebody without even using words, just being there. And the ministry of presence is what we call it in the chaplain world. And that started this journey to doing chaplaincy. And so I served with Scott County from 2005. Sometimes it would be busy. Sometimes, there were times literally that I went a year and a half without ever even hearing from them.
Oh, wow.
Unless I just showed up at the sheriff's office. Just because, turnover. The deputies didn't know that they had chaplains, those types of things. So anyway, got married, had kids, moved away for a while, and lived up in Perryville when I was on staff at First Baptist Church there as the youth pastor. And then moved back to Sikeston, was on staff at a church in Cape, and so was out of pocket and not able to do a lot of chaplain ministry, living 30 minutes away from the church, and not, it was just so busy I wasn't able to do a lot. And
so you have, how many kids do you have? I know you have several.
Yeah, 5 kids.
5 kids, okay. But some of them are pretty young. So back then, you didn't. Was it just Cade then that you had, or?
Yeah, so my oldest was born in 2008. So in 2005 is when Crystal and I got married. We moved away in 2006, and we lived away for a couple of years, moved back to Sikeston in 2008.
Okay.
And that is right after Cade was born. And we've lived here ever since then.
Okay.
So since then, we've had 4 more children come into our home, and it's that's where life is now. As far as the home front, it's busy with trying to be the best dad I can be.
Yeah. So you got the ministry, the church. You got the chaplaincy here. You have 5 children. I know you do you umpire.
Yeah.
For sports, and. What else do you do? You do the radio station?
Do some radio work. I'm the executive director of Downtown Sikeston.
Oh yeah, I forgot that one.
Yeah. So
How do you forget that one?
that's
He's so
actually,
busy. I forget all the stuff he does.
That's actually my full-time job. Is we planted a church or started a church in downtown Sikeston in 2012 is when we first started meeting. In 2013 when we found a space. 2014, we launched the church, and it was at that time we received sponsorships from other churches. We had a network of partner churches that helped fund us to start kind of parenting a church is what it's called.
Right.
They were our parent churches or our sponsor churches, and we were a new church plant. And I was able to be full-time at that church, at Anchor Church, for about 3 years until those partnerships went away and we had to try to survive on our own, which is the normal life cycle of a church. Is you get sponsorships, you get started, and then you grow and mature and become your own church and try to survive and figure out a way to do that. So in 2016, I had to go what I call co-vocational. Some people call bivocational. I call it co-vocational because to me they work hand in hand instead of being something totally separate. I think they work together, working in a job that's not the church and pastoring a church. We also have a plurality of elders at our church, and so it's not just me leading the whole thing. I have a great team of men who pastor the church with me. So, and I went into hospice and worked hospice for about 4 years.
That's a tough job. My sister has done that. I know some other people have done that. That's a tough gig right there.
Yeah, the first 2 months of that job as a chaplain for hospice were awful.
Yeah.
I had more panic attacks in those 2 months than I have had any other time in my life. It was a life change. I was on the road all the time. I was driving 2,000, 2,500 miles in 2 weeks, going and visiting patients all over Southeast Missouri. And again, in that situation, you're visiting patients and their families in the worst time of their life, and that is at death.
Yeah, at death, for sure.
The patients are on their way out of this world, and their families are trying to figure out what it's going to look like to grieve appropriately and to have a new normal in living without their loved one, whether it's their dad or their mom or a sibling or whatever the case may be. And it was awful.
So you think that that experience, first of all, I would think it would have to affect you spiritually. Did you have some spiritual growth during that phase?
Oh yeah, definitely. I would say the spiritual growth that took place during my time in hospice was probably some of the most growth that I've had spiritually, because it helped me be quiet in those moments when spiritual warfare was happening, because I would go and visit a patient and, maybe being there when they took their last breath, holding their spouse or their children, offering comfort to them, spending 30 minutes there in the nursing home or in their home. The funeral home comes and picks up the body.
I can't imagine that. It's got to be tough.
The family's there grieving and mourning. And then my responsibility is, okay, praying for you guys. I'll be following up with you.
Yeah.
And then I jump in my car and drive 45 minutes by myself in the car to another home or another nursing home or another facility where that's happening again.
Yeah.
And it was just some of those moments where those drive times was, God, I need help with my soul, just to be able to serve them and have compassion and point them to the hope of Christ and show them how to grieve appropriately and in a healthy way. And in doing so, what I realize now, hindsight being 2020, is the Lord used those moments to sharpen me.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you is, like, do you think that, because we have obviously very serious incidents that take place here, sometimes involve a death, whether it's a fire death or a shooting death or just a, unattended death. You think that helped you, I'm sure it did in a lot of ways, to prep you for this chaplaincy program?
I think it probably helped. I would say primarily the most important thing in serving as a chaplain is there is a spiritual aspect to the preparation that comes not from anything that happens, but from the Lord.
Yeah.
And I truly believe that the Lord, anybody that's called to that type of work, in the same way as you guys are when you're serving as officers, the Lord has prepared you. That is outside of training, it's outside of experience. He has placed in us His Spirit and has sharpened us with gifts to be able to do things that on our own, even with training, we would not be able to do.
What's interesting about it is as we get older, we can kind of look back and reflect on that path that the Lord, in your story. So you got 9/11, that incident that happened, and that realization that you could do something like that, and you slowly get into that, even going into hospice. And now when you come here, you've done a tremendous job for us, and we don't always know that backstory. That's why we're doing this podcast, to kind of talk about that, and to see that growth that has taken place to get you where you are today. And you can look back on that and think about how God has presented those events and those circumstances to get you where you are.
Yeah, and as I think about my story, I am reminded that God is sovereign in all of that. In other words, it's not just like He's trying something to see if it's going to work in my life to prepare me. Like, God has a plan for us.
Yeah. And
from the moment that we are, He thinks of us before we're even born, before we're in the womb. And so God has prepared me to do whatever He presents to me to do. And I don't know what that is in the future.
Right.
I know what it's been in the past, but I didn't know what it was until I got there.
Yeah.
And so that's why, for me, specifically speaking of the chaplain work, it's so important that I do it to the best of my ability, using the gifts that God has given me, and trying to be the best at it that I can be.
Yeah. So you may not know this, Zach, but how we first started, when I first met you, I guess, I had rededicated my life to Christ, I think 2016, and I was in a leadership role here. I wasn't the chief, but I was going to church and stuff like that, and I ended up at, was it Trinity Baptist?
I think we did it at Minor Baptist.
No, you had a.
There
was a
the
revival.
Feast week.
Feast week, yeah. And it's kind of funny because never met Jason before, and he's I think second night or something, and we were up there. I had my daughter with me, and we were going to watch the sermon. And this guy gets up. Now, you notice he has some tattoos on his arms and stuff like this. And, of course, I can't see what the tattoos are from where I'm sitting. And he gets up there, and they're like, well, Jason Davis is going to give us a message. And I'm looking at him and his tattoos and his beard, and I'm thinking, oh, boy, what are we going to get into here? This is why you can't judge a book by its cover, okay? Because I'm just like, I don't know about this guy. You know what But he gave a message that was right on point, that was biblically based. And I was like, this guy's a good pastor. You know what I mean? So what was interesting is like, I don't really know how the idea of the chaplaincy program came up, but I think as my personal experience that I was thinking, man, this has been really good for me personally, and this would really be good for the officers. And I had this idea of doing a chaplain's program. But you're talking about God's work. I remember the chief then, he'd come in and we were doing our meeting and everything else. And I had this idea, and the way these things work here is timing. Like if you have an idea and you want to present it in the right way. Because if you don't, the chief may not want to do it or anything like that. And here I had this idea of how we could do this, maybe do 2 or 3 chaplains and work it that way, because there's a lot of work. And we go around a table and come to me, and I'm just like kind of chickened out. I'm like, I'm not going to mention this, maybe I'll find another time to do it. And it gets back down to the chief, and then the chief says, I got an idea. I want to get a chaplain program going. And I just about fell out of my chair. I'm like, well, I've got an idea how to do that, So truthfully, it was his idea. I mean, I guess we'd both been thinking about it. And it was kind of weird to me how that took place. It's kind of a God moment, I think. And man, I'm so glad that we all did that. Then it's not just me, it's not just you, but I think everybody. It's just God come together and put this together for us. I think.
I mean, let me make it even more weird if you didn't know this part of the story. So, serving with Scott County for all those years, I always prayed, God, give me the opportunity to minister. To serve in that role in Sikeston, if possible.
Yeah.
And that never was really possible. It never worked out. I had ideas, but timing is everything, right?
Right.
And as I had conversations with people that could potentially facilitate that, the timing wasn't right. Mm-hmm. And so I just for years prayed about it. God opened up opportunities. When I'd be on scenes with Scott County and Sikeston was there, I would, try to build relationships. Zach had an incident. I remember an officer reaching out to me and said, hey, we have a younger officer. He's pretty new at the time the incident happened. Mm-hmm. And I literally found him on Facebook, sent him a message that, hey, I'm a chaplain with Scott County. If you need anything, I'm here. And that's the first ironically, that you're doing this with us today, but that's the first contact I had with Sikeston DPS was contacting Zach after an incident he had. So that time that this is all happening with the chief at that time, I was coaching basketball, and he was coaching or helping coach his grandson's basketball team. Mm-hmm. It was a Saturday morning. I'll never forget it. He had not been chief very long, and I went up to him, and I said, hey, I'd love to meet with you sometime and talk about serving as a chaplain at Sikeston or starting a chaplain program if you'd ever be interested in that. And he said, that's crazy that you mentioned that. That's a good idea. And I think I think you had just had that conversation that week.
Oh, wow. So this is before he mentioned that here.
It was either
after,
the week
after,
right after, or maybe it was on Saturday. So it might have been, if it was that Monday meeting or whatever, it might have been right after that. I don't know, but it was all like. And then he said that's when he then reached out to me that next week, and he said there's going to be a meeting with the Ministerial Alliance at Minor. You're going to come talk about it and talk about how we could potentially do this. And I was like, oh, this is happening maybe, and here we are.
Yeah, a lot of people think, so how did you select those guys? And truth of the matter is we didn't. We went out to the Ministerial Alliance and we said, hey, we want to do this. I understand that it's a burden when you have your own flock of people at a church that you can. I understood how much responsibility that is. And so we were looking for somebody that had the time to serve and who would serve. So we just kind of opened it up to see who would show up. And, of course, you, Kenny King, John McAfee, all three did, and everyone did a tremendous job. Good friends of mine, all of you are. And so I can remember, I'll tell this story. It's and I just talked to this guy not long ago because he was on, abusing. He was under this drug addiction that he had, abusing drugs, and you'll remember this, and he had a girlfriend that had overdosed, and it was one of the first calls I thought I need to call Jason and get him here. So now keep in mind I had rededicated my life and felt like we're trying to push chaplain program. And you still have these moments where you're like, man, I am still very flawed. You know what I mean? It's like you showed up and showed that guy so much compassion because he was tore up. You can imagine, just tore up from that. Consoling him, had your arm around him, praying with him. And now I knew this guy as someone who had abused drugs for decades. And I guess I caught myself thinking, man, where is my compassion for this guy? You know what I mean? And so I think that's how it's helped so much. I talked to him, it was a couple weeks ago, and he has gotten cleaned up, thank God, and he has turned his life around.
Awesome.
And oddly enough, I wouldn't think he remembered, but he remembered me, and I was starting to tell him the story about the chaplain program, and he stopped me. He said, "You told me all about that." And I was like, "Oh, wow, so you remember that?" And he said, "Oh, yeah, for sure." And even going from that, I think that helped me grow a little bit because, I really wasn't there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
yeah, I remember that. I was actually coming back into town from a hospice visit at that moment that you called that day. I remember that day well because I was amped up because I was like, "Oh, this is it." We've been planning, we've been preparing, we've been working through paperwork and policy and all this stuff that we have to work through. And my phone rings and it's you, and hey, we need you if you can come. And I was like, man, I'm there. I'll be there in 10 minutes.
Yeah. Well, we know. One of the things that I wanted to work on culturally is really inside the department was trying to get officers to really see people as they are. And like I said, I had to kind of work on that myself. And when you bring somebody in like yourself that does that type of thing, it kind of changes the whole. It certainly takes time, but you add in that element, and then not only do I see that, but the other officers on scene see that. And then you get time to talk with them, and then slowly but surely we start heading off, I feel like, in the right direction. And if we can have that empathy, and the empathy in law enforcement is such a huge thing because, Zach, you can attest to this. You get cynical and jaded, and then you deal with the people in these on their worst days, and it's very easy to become calloused to that.
And the bad thing is you almost kind of have to figure out how to work around it because you get new guys that don't have that callous, and then trying to be like, oh, you care. I need to care too.
Yeah, right.
So,
yeah, that's for sure. So, I'm just wondering, as you've been doing this, what is Crystal, your wife? What has she thought about this?
Oh man, I got to tell you, she has been my biggest cheerleader and biggest support through this. If she was not on board with this, this would neither be possible or enjoyable.
Yeah.
Because surprise, most of the things that we get called to don't happen at 2:00 in the afternoon on a Wednesday.
Sure.
Right. We've been in bed together, asleep at 2:00 in overnight, and had the phone ring, and she knows. She knows when the phone rings after a certain time of the evening that it's not
good news.
Not a good news, and it's probably you or dispatch on the end of the line phone call saying, can you come to this address and be here soon? And she, and what people don't know is she then wakes up, she prays with me, for me, as I'm getting ready. She keeps, I have 2 types of radio, my radio and then the scanner, so she can listen to the radio traffic. She keeps it on so she can hear what's going on, and she stays up until I get home.
Wow.
And then she serves as, for lack of a better term, my chaplain when I get home, because I can just go, I'm not going to be able to go right to sleep after that usually. And so she'll say, you good? You want to talk? You just want to sit here? And so if it wasn't for her, this would not be possible. And she's been great. She's been encouragement. She's been a help in some situations where she's actually ministered to some of the wives or some of the people that have been impacted by an incident that I wouldn't be able to, but she could because she's a mom.
Yeah.
And so, wow, she's been awesome.
Well, I know sometimes she takes calls herself. If I can't get in touch with you, if you're busy doing one of your many jobs, I'll call her and say, hey, where's he at?
Yeah.
He's like, and she'll say he knows, he's already got the message, he's on his way or something like that, which I really appreciate. I could see her being a big support for sure, and a motivator. She seems like the type of person that would push you in the right direction if you weren't going that right. She's done that to me.
she is a motivator, and that she holds me accountable.
Yeah.
Because again, this isn't just something that I choose to do as a hobby. Yeah. This is something that I feel with my life God has called me to.
Yeah.
And so if that is true, then I need to be held accountable to that. And I need to do it with all my effort, with everything that I have. And there are times when I go, man, I'm tired, or, and she's like, God called you to this, then you need to be accountable for that. And so, and it's not just the chaplain. I mean, that's in every area of my life. She's been a helpmate. She's been an encourager. She serves and loves me well. And I can't thank God enough for her.
So what is a like week to week or whatever, what's an average day for a chaplain, when they call you and ask you to do that, or when I call you? What's that look like?
Well,
what does Jason do every day?
Yeah, so, those are 2 different things, I think. We'll start with the chaplain thing. For those situations, they start before the call for me. And again, I feel called to this, so I dedicate my life to this. So I'm always listening. I'm always listening to the radio. I'm always just trying to, catch cues. Is there something going on? Is the officer's voice saying there's an issue?
I've noticed that because times I call you and you're already on the way.
Yeah, that's just the way that I am with that. And so situation happens. My first thing is prayer. Let me be calm. Let me have peace in this. Help me understand. Help me be compassionate. Prepare my heart. Prepare my mind. Prepare my body for whatever's about to happen. And, some of those situations can be dangerous at times, and they can be scary, and they can be gross. I mean, there's a whole range of things that I just don't ever know what I'm going to be coming into. And so there's that preparation. And then, quite honestly, because of majority of those calls are late at night, there is, I need to write down the address, what's kind of happened so that I know.
It's tough when you get that out of a dead sleep. And, and I get these phone calls, of course, and people will rattle off what's going on. I'm like, okay, I did this to you not long ago. Zach had something happen. I'm not going to get into that.
Yeah.
But he called me and he's rattled off, and I'm like, no. I was like, no, wait. You're going to say that again. What did you say?
Yeah. So that's just the real pragmatic or practical thing that I do is I try to, and I'll try to, you may notice on the phone call, I'll try to repeat back to you at the very end of the conversation. I'll say, so you said you're at, and I'll say the location. Yep, that's where we're at. Okay, I'll be there, and I try to get to wherever I'm going in less than 10 minutes if possible. That's just personally a thing that I've set for myself. So get dressed and head that way, and then show up on scene and do whatever needs to be done.
Yeah.
Whether that's consoling a family member that's hurting, whether that's getting water for a firefighter who's coming out of a fire, whether that's picking up trash, whether that's holding a baby. I mean, whatever needs to be done in that moment, that's what I'm there for. No limits.
Yeah.
So, and that's what happens is I'm there until I don't need to be there anymore.
So he's been on your scenes, your fire scenes and stuff like that. How has that been helpful to you?
I don't know. He's always there with water, that's for sure. Like every time I turn, you need a bottle of water? No, I'm good.
Yeah.
But I think it's comforting. Like, I'd say most of the scenes, it's not a big deal, but we have scenes that it's like, man, this sucks.
Yeah.
And just him being there really kind of makes it a little bit easier, knowing that if I got something I need to talk about real quick.
Well, because you have, I mean, on those scenes, fire scenes, maybe we'll have a fire death or something like that. You have a lot of boxes to check and things to do and getting fire marshals here and cause and origin and fire investigators, and you're trying to do the technical aspect of the job. But there's also this need for this empathetic aspect of the job with the people there that are undergoing that, and you can't really do both of those at the same time.
Right. And, there's been times where maybe the family's not there, and, somebody's going to need to reach out to them. I can't do that. One may not even know who they are, may not have the right contact information. He can go and get that information, work with some of the other guys. But then not just family, it's start looking at some of the guys that we get on scene that work here that aren't used, new guys that aren't used to some of the things. And it's like, hey, go check on him. Make sure he's good to go. And that's really great help because where I may come back and do a little bit more of that later, him being right there on the spot is perfect.
Have you had a lot of ministry with the officers themselves? I say ministry, but I mean serving them in times of need is what I'm talking about.
Whether they like it or not.
So now here begs the question is like, the different denominations, how do you adjust for all that?
My goal there as a chaplain and a follower of Jesus is to serve my Lord with everything that I have. And in those moments, pointing people to the hope of Christ with words is often empty. But if I can show them his love, show them his compassion, serve them with humility, it doesn't matter to me if you're Baptist or Catholic or atheist or agnostic. That doesn't matter to me. God's called me to serve you.
Yeah.
Period.
Right.
And so as I serve with those officers, and a lot of times, like I said, I joke a little. It doesn't matter whether they like it or not. Again, I'm not there because they like it.
Right.
I'm there because I care for them. And so if that's just and there are officers that still work for the department today that or are new, some of the new guys that come in and they're too cool for school at times and they don't need it, and I'm good, and okay, that's fine. But I just want you to know that when you're not good, I'm here.
Well, how coming into the department, because I know our group is a specific sort of group, and so you're a chaplain, you come in, and I know some of these stories, but I want you to talk about it. How difficult is that to come in? Because you've been here for several years now, and I think now, at least the people that have been here during that time certainly accept you. And I don't know if that was the case initially. What was that like?
It was not the case, and it never is the case initially. And And I understand that, and that is okay. I'm an outsider,
right?
And I have to understand that. I'm not a law enforcement officer. I'm not a firefighter. I'm a pastor, and for some folks, that just that alone freaks them out. That a pastor is here, just freaks them out. Not only that, I think there is built within the culture at times this idea of what does this guy want?
Sure.
What is his ulterior motive? And so,
is he here for himself or is he here for us?
Is it
that question's there?
Yeah. Is it just about you getting a title, or is it just about being able to get out of a speeding ticket, or like fill in the blank? What is the ulterior motive that this guy is here for? There's some cynicism in your culture. I don't know if you knew that or not.
I've seen that. I heard stories. Okay. I don't know.
Okay. I just thought maybe you might need to be aware of that. But anyway, so coming in to DPS, Sikeston DPS specifically, there was some relationship already with some folks that served as what I would call persons of peace or gatekeepers, people that I was okay with Zach. And so as Zach was talking to somebody, I'd let Zach introduce me to this person instead of me just going, "Hey, I'm the new chaplain." Zach would go, "Hey, this is Jason. He's here as a chat," and that helps soften that a little bit. But I felt like, and I know Kenny and John both, all of us, as we had our meetings and had our conversations, there was this like, we just need to show up at headquarters, show up on scenes, don't ask for anything. Just be there. Let them see us, that we're not there wanting anything, but we're there to serve them. And when we show up, do whatever you need to do to serve them.
How long do you think that took? It took a while, I think.
Yeah, I mean,
where most people are like, okay, these guys are good guys. They're here to help. So
I kind of gauged that by when the officers started cussing in front of us.
They have kind of a surly language sometimes.
Yeah.
I mean, police officers are known for that.
I always feel guilty about some of the jokes I tell when Jason's around.
Well, there's this. It's funny, and I think this is in all chaplain culture probably, but this idea of people think that I'm judging them, and so they do something or they say something, and they'll say, one of the other guys said, "There's a pastor in the room," or When that stopped, I felt like it made me feel like, okay, they at least trust me enough to know that I'm not here for
probably a good gauge,
an ulterior motive to judge them or try to.
He's not going to go tell God on us.
Try to. I don't have to do that.
Yeah.
I'm not the judge, and so again, that was some work. The main thing that I and John McAfee said this so great when we first started. Like, I think somebody asked him, one of the first call outs was a fire on a Marion where we lost somebody in that fire. It was in December. It was cold. It had snowed, I think, that day before that. It was a call out at like 1 o'clock in the morning, and it was our first one. All three of us came. I mean, we were like, "Yep, we're going." And we got there, and then we just stood there. We literally stood there. It was cold. It was freezing.
Yeah.
And we didn't do anything. And we were sitting there talking, and one of the firefighters came up to us and said specifically to John, what are you guys doing? Why are you here? And he said, "Is there anybody else on this scene praying for you right now?" And I was like, that's right. That's why we're here. Because if we can do nothing else, we can pray.
Well, I tell you, and these calls are just downright inconvenient at times. I mean, with the weather and the difficulty, I mean, you'll have fires when it's pouring down rain and it's 20 degrees or something like that, and it's freezing and stuff like it's not comfortable either. And when those officers see that you're willing to stand there and do nothing in that inclement weather, that says a lot, I think,
Yeah. Well, like I said, it's worth it. I love every guy and girl that's a part of this department. And I say that not with an empty as an empty statement, but in reality that I believe that there's a reason why our lives have intersected. Mm-hmm. I'm a chaplain. They're a public safety officer here at Sikeston DPS. And in his sovereignty, God saw fit for our paths to cross one day in 2025 or regularly over several years. Mm-hmm. And if I can be an encouragement and let that person know on that day, I'm for you.
Yeah.
I'm with you, and whatever you need, I'm here for you. Mm-hmm. If we as chaplains can do that, then we have done a good job.
Well, I'll say, that aspect of being on scene, and even if it's not happening right away, but if we needed that person to have that empathy and we can hand that off to you, and you help the family, console the family so we can do our job, that is a big aspect, because as I'm before that, I'm thinking about that, like, how can I do this? But I got so much other stuff to do that I'll shortcut that to try, and then we come off kind of cold and callous. And I mean, you make us really look, and it's not that we're cold and callous, but we've got technical aspects of the job, the investigation, fire investigation, shooting investigation that we've got to complete. We got to get major case squad going sometimes. We got to do this and do that. And that aspect is just not a priority. It's not that it's not important. It's certainly important, but it's not a priority. And so I think that we can do that, and you guys take over. Not only do you do that, but the follow-up that you do with the family the next day and setting up meetings and going out and just touching base with them, stuff we don't even know about unless I'm just asking. Sometimes I'll ask, but that's a big deal too. And you also take a role in crisis intervention team, CIT, which we talk about. I had a friend of mine tell me, he's like, we have got to stop using acronyms and explain what these things are.
Yeah.
But that mental health aspect. So let me ask you this question. Was there a call that you went to that you realized, hey, this is very important, and the gravity of this role really hit home?
I mentioned the first call that I ever went to on my birthday, realizing the importance of someone being there in that moment, that I could do something and offer something that nobody else could in that moment. There was investigations being, looking for things and trying to find notes and all this stuff, and I could be there and just let the wife cry on my shoulder.
Right.
And so when I think about every call, the gravity of that is real to me. I think that the way you just described that is, to me, every call feels that way.
Yeah.
If someone's house is on fire, right, that's why I will show up at a house fire, because I can't imagine my house being on fire.
Right.
And me standing in the front yard watching my stuff burn. I can't even imagine. So if I can be there with that person so they're not alone and be able to have the resources, I have the Red Cross number on my phone, and that's the first thing that I do is I say, here's the number, what's your cell phone number? I'm going to text you this number because this is going to be a resource for you. If I can just be there for them and make sure that they realize we as a department are for them, not just to put their fire out, but this is several days that you're going to be dealing with this, weeks, months.
Yeah.
And if there's anything that we can do, then I can do that. I can serve that way. And if it's somebody who, we have unfortunately incidents with children, young babies that stop breathing, or SIDS incidents, and I put myself in the shoes of those parents, and I cannot fathom that situation. And so if I can just be there with them to help them work through that and be a comfort to them, that's what I want to do. I can't imagine being the officers in some of those situations. And so, I mean, my heart for the officers at the DPS is just if I can just be there next to them and be a presence, a calming, comforting presence in turmoil and craziness, then that's what I want to do. So for me, the gravity of every call is that.
Right. And I just, as the leader here, I see just the importance of a young officer, seeing, because they don't really train you how to do that in the police academy, that's not your primary function. But you are a person that has empathy, but you don't really have the skills to do what you've been doing in the way that you do it so well. But they do get to see you do it, and so I think that is teachable. That's a teachable moment for those officers where they can see how to do that. If you're 21, 22 years of age, I try to put myself in that shoes, and in a serious call like that, I'm not the person. You know what I mean? At that age, I mean, I'm older now. I have kids of my own, so you kind of learn. You're better at that, I think, as you grow older, you're mature. But to me, just the cultural change that's added to the department has been a big impact.
Well, and I appreciate that. That's an encouraging word. And another thing that I think about is not just the incidents, but also you guys are people. And so you have marriage struggles.
Sure. You
have health issues where you have to, officers are having surgeries and they get sicknesses, or they have children that are sick and in the hospital. You guys have personal lives outside of the department, and I can minister or pastor, because if you don't have a church home or a pastor to help care for you in that way, in a spiritual way, or in sometimes a physical way, maybe you need your yard mowed. Well, I can do that for you if that needs to be done. And so there is that aspect of, come on, Zach.
I got goats for that.
Okay. Yeah. So there is that aspect of it too, for me, that is even broader than just what takes place when you're wearing the badge, but the fact that you guys are human beings who have real life situations as well. And so I've gotten to do several weddings of, and unfortunately funeral of an officer. And I mean, it is a reality that I think is important. Yeah.
And I was thinking about that as we were talking about one of our officers that completed suicide a couple years ago. Certainly a devastating moment in my career, especially being the chief here, and seeing how it affected the officers. And I thought, going through that, what would have happened had we not had the chaplains there for support? And I thank you guys for that, because y'all were huge and instrumental in that moment of crisis that we had. It's terrible. I'm supposed to go to, this will air, I guess, next Wednesday, but Monday, I'm supposed to go to that Shield of Armor and give the introduction, and we're going to talk about that. And I'm a little nervous to talk about that, because that's a sore spot. You know what I mean? It's that's a tough thing to do. But that Shield of Armor talks about mental health for officers, and trying to address those struggles and difficulties that officers go through, that you as chaplains or on crisis intervention teams or mental wellness, that we all try to combat against, to keep these officers, on a good path. And that one did not end well, and it was, he had some personal struggles going on, obviously, and it was unfortunate for sure. But I really thank you guys for doing that, because without doubt in my mind, that would have affected us a lot worse without y'all's help on that. So
yeah. I mean, that was one of those hardest times that I've ever experienced in chaplain ministry, and hoping it never happens again.
Sure,
but the reality is, this is a dangerous job for you guys, and you guys don't know what you're getting into when you get in your vehicle and you drive to a call. And so, I mean, there's accidents, there's shootings, there's all kinds of things that could come up. And man, if we can just pray for you guys and support you and be a comfort for you. And there are some practical things that we're working on. I mean, we're trying to put together some emergency packets for the officers, and working to try to get what information we want in those packets, so that if something were to happen, or if there's an issue, I mean, things that you wouldn't even think about unless you were having to think about it. But like, if you were in a motor vehicle accident, how would you want your wife to be told about that? Who would you want to tell them? Those types of things that people never think about. And you know, maybe you wouldn't just want a chaplain to show up at your wife's house, but maybe one of your friends that's an officer and the chaplain, or, you know, so that is done in an appropriate way to care for the family as well. And so all those types of things we have to think of in this chaplain ministry.
So before we finish up here, I'm curious, what's you got plans for the future as in the role as chaplain? I mean, where do you see yourself in this role in like the next 2 or 3, 4 years?
Yeah, I mean, I think the role of chaplain continues to evolve and grow. And, you know, we talk a lot about the ministry of presence. I think having to keep our nose to the grind at that and just be present is something that we have to continue to do. I'd love to see the program here grow. I don't know what that could potentially look like. Who knows what that could look like? Or maybe it doesn't need to grow. Maybe it is one of those programs that just kind of goes with the ebbs and flows of the department.
I think it's been really successful. One thing I do wonder is, like, how do you balance all of that? Because all those jobs and things and, you know, responsibilities that you manage, you're getting called out in the middle of the night. I mean, has this affected you? I mean, and seeing these incidents, I mean, has that been taxing on yourself personally?
Yeah, there have definitely been those moments where I needed a chaplain. And thankfully, McAfee has served well in that with me as well. I mean, if there have been situations where I've just reached out to John and I said, hey, can you be my chaplain right now? We had a situation in our family, and both of the chaplains showed up, and they were there for me in that situation. And, you know, there are nights that I lie awake and I think about a scene, or I think about an incident, or you know, I remember the Interstate 57 wreck on St. Patrick's Day a few years ago, and responding to that just to help in any way that I could, and not realizing what was going to be experienced over that like 6-hour span, not only with the people that were involved in the incident, but also the first responders working that, and what they were going to be experiencing, what I was going to be experiencing. And I remember that night not sleeping. And
if you don't remember that was I know y'all remember that, but I'll tell the listeners but very foggy morning, wasn't it? And then 57 coming into Sikeston from the bridge over there, Illinois. And multiple, I don't know how many cars there were wrecked, but they just started that.
Like 100 vehicles.
Yeah, there's like 100 vehicles.
Some on fire. And
several fatalities.
It was a bad incident for sure.
It was a rough deal. And like, I left the scene, and that was my daughter's birthday as well.
Yeah.
And so then we leave that scene, then we're going to like do a birthday thing with my family and with my daughter and celebrate her. And I remember thinking, like, my attitude is terrible right now because I'm an emotional, I'm just drained. And you know,
I'm laughing because I know exactly what you're talking about.
Every call has a way of
you're there, but you're not present.
Every call has a way of making you taking your attention and leading to some difficulties that you have to work through and be prepared for. I mean, the first year of the program, I think we had an issue with several people completing suicide that year.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you remember that.
I do remember that, yeah.
And it was like every month for like 6 months we were getting a call out to that. And it's like,
it was pretty crazy that year.
Yeah, that was a difficult year. So
go ahead.
Those things do stick with me. And but again, God has the way I manage that with Crystal and even just being able to trust the Lord with that, and He gives a calm and a comfort that is undescribable, unexplainable.
Yeah, I think about where this started. Did you ever think it would end up what I think is very good? Do you think it ever ended up as good as it was, or do you think it would be? Are you surprised that it's going as well as it is? Or
I am a little surprised that it is working the way that it has worked.
I knew it would be good, but I was like, I think I underestimated the benefit that this would have on both the community and the department.
Yeah, I think the thing that surprised me most is the place where we've gotten to where there is an accepted role of a chaplain in the department. So it's no longer a surprise that the department has a chaplain. Now, for the public, there's still, I think one of the most recent calls I went on, we showed up, it was, somebody had passed away, and we were in the home with the widow at that time and just talking, and she was like, so, because I wasn't wearing a uniform. It was 10 o'clock at night.
She's like, who are you?
And I'm literally wearing jeans and a T-shirt and my DPS ID. And she goes, who are you again?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have a gun on. I don't have, I'm just some guy in her house with a beard and tattoo. And, and I said, I'm the chaplain. She goes, well, I didn't even know this is so great. And then I sat and we talked for an hour, just talking about stuff. And so for the public, there are still times when they are surprised. But I think here in the culture of the department, it's been surprising how accepting it is.
Oh yeah, I mean, so you got new officers. New officers are coming in over the last several years, and you've already been here. You know, so you're established, and they're the new person. So it's just a norm for them. Yeah, and I try to hijack like their lunches and stuff like that. They probably have noticed that, but I'll it's lunchtime and I'm driving around and I'm like, where are the fire trucks at? Or, where, and I think I'll go to Grecian today. Oh, hey guys, you got an empty seat? And I'll just sit down and eat with them. And it's been nice to be accepted for that. And then just be able to build those relationships and have a good time. What a great story. I mean, I think this is, I'll say this, of all the things that I was a part of here at DPS, this chaplain program that, the former chief and I, and you, and like I said, I don't take credit for this. I mean, because this thing just kind of happened and I just watched it happen, and I had some input on it, but I think it's one of the most, it was one of the best things that I've seen happen in my career. I mean, because just the impact that it's had on the community and those people that are having that terrible day and the officers themselves, so I appreciate that. This is a good story. Needs to be told. So, well, do you have anything else? We probably should wrap this up, I guess. But Zach, do you have anything?
I don't have anything. I'm sorry.
You got stuff. I know you do.
I don't have a lot of input on this today.
Yeah. Well, Jason, is there anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I just I appreciate the program and the openness. I mean, at the end of the day, the reality is the Lord has been at work in this, and I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast. But without access, right? Without leadership saying you're welcome here. Yeah, you can come to the scenes. You have access to walk in the door whenever you want to. It's
somewhat selfish on my part because I know that is going. I mean, you talk about going out to these scenes and you're attached to us, and then we get the benefit of having you on our team. Citizens see that. And then they think of Sikeston DPS and look at this great program. And really, I just let you go do what you do, and we don't even pay you. Yeah. I mean, you don't get a dime for this. I don't know if people know that. A lot of people don't know that. They think, but you just volunteer your time. I feel a little guilty about that.
You shouldn't. And I mean, there's a reality.
Okay, I'm over it.
Yeah, okay. I figured. And City Hall's probably okay that you're over that too. No, but I my boss owns a cattle on 1,000 hills. Yeah. And he is the one that prepared me for this.
That's good.
And so at the end of the day, as a husband, as a father, as a pastor, as a chaplain, as the director of downtown Sikeston, or whatever the future holds for me, at the end of the day, if I can serve my Lord well, if I can love my family well, and if I can serve my community and those that God has placed in front of me well, and I can preach the gospel, die and be forgotten, and stand before the Lord and have him say, well done, good and faithful servant.
That's good.
I mean, whatever you want to write a check for could not cover that.
Yeah, we should all have that perspective, like love God, love people. Yeah. So which I've heard you say on a number of prayers, sermons. Yeah. But, well, I think that's about all we're going to do today. Appreciate you telling your story, Jason. I think that's a great story. Zach, thank you for filling in for.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah.
You have so much to say. I know you do, but we're going to have you on here because we have a new fire truck coming out.
We do.
I've been bugging you about that, and we're going to shoot some video of that and get Josh Golightly, our IT guy, detective, to fix our video up to incorporate that video so we can show our new fire truck on the show, which is going to be good. We got a fire station that we're fixing to break ground on. We got a lot of new stuff happening.
Boy, I can't wait.
We have got this academy program that we're going to do under the Missouri Sheriff Association here. A lot of people don't know that, but you've been instrumental in getting that program going. We're going to start that in May, train up our 10-plus officers that need police certification so we can catch up here and lighten the load on some of the officers. So
hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully so. But with that, I think we're going to call it end of episode 4. Jason's story. So remember, keep tuning in and subscribe to our channel here, and send us an email at chief.cap.chap@gmail.com. And remember,
first, thanks to Josh for his work in editing and doing all his work. Man, he makes us look good. And we're going to remember, we want you to remember this, Zach. Always take the high road.
Take that high road, Zach.
Okay.